Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello, and welcome to episode 165 of Mythos Busters. It's me, it's Sean, and with me tonight, dare I say, it is the whole cast of Mythos Busters, and I'm so happy. It's been a long time since we've gotten the whole crew together on an episode, so I'm giddy about it. So first, we've got Ian. Hey, Ian.
Oh, hello.
How are you? When is the last time you had poutine?
I don't even know. It was honestly probably that, remember when the Game Center used to have its poutine back in the day?
It was not bad.
That was honestly probably the last time I had it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I was told by every Canadian who had it there, and there were a fair few because our lovely Canadians love their card games, that the curds were not squeaky in nature. Scott, concur?
Yeah, really fresh cheese curds, when you bite into them, they squeak against your teeth. And that's when you know you're getting, like, fresh, really great cheese curds. So,
The old squeak test.
I think the other issue, too, when you're eating poutine somewhere else, is, one, they say poutine instead of poutine. And then also, the poutine gravy is not like a beef gravy. It's like a spiced gravy that isn't, I don't know. It's thinner than the gravy you usually get. Like at the FFZ, like they have like that, the gravy that you dip fries into. It's a different gravy. Some people call it sauce, like it's poutine sauce, because it's different. So that's usually different. the big difference I find. That it's usually a big thick beef gravy, and that's not what it's supposed to be. But
excellent. Well, Justin, best and worst fallout from eating that monstrosity that you posted in chat?
Yeah, I mean, best was I controlled myself, so there wasn't much fallout. I don't know. It was delicious. I seriously looked across the table at my wife and said, if I die young or earlier than planned because of this, know that I've lived a happy life. Like it was delicious.
He died doing what he loved.
You know, it's and I do think we had, Scott, I agree with a lot of your analysis on poutine and how it would be different. I think we are a little spoiled in Minnesota due to our proximity to Canada, where we have more of it than other places. But yeah, some of them do just go in with like, it's fries with gravy on it, and we happen to find some cheese curds. It's like, no, there's a formula.
Or the worst is like, hey, here's fries with beef gravy and shredded cheese. And it's like, it's poutine. I'm like, this is not.
I mean, what you've described is still something I'm definitely going to eat.
Oh, yes.
But I recognize it is substandard poutine.
If you say fries with gravy and cheese, that's cool. Just,
Yeah, keep naming good foods.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not poutine. So.
Well, as the resident Canadian, I feel like you are the best one to gatekeep. So, yeah, look forward to, God, I don't know. To answer my own question, I think I went to Toronto in 2018. That was the last time I had real poutine. It was really good. I wish I could remember where it was. But anyway, this is not a podcast about poutine. This is a podcast about Arkham Horror, the card game, and we have got a really fun episode for you guys tonight. We're going to do just a little bit of news. We've got some fun voicemail episodes that I'm super excited to talk through tonight. And then we are going to get into the meat of our discussion. Tonight, we are going to talk to you about silver bullet cards. So we're going to run through the various campaigns and talk about those specific cards. You know, we always kind of talk about how each campaign has its own little mini meta. What cards fit in the upper tier of those little mini metas specifically. And I'm mentioning it in such detail at the beginning here because I want to remind you guys that we have a Mythos Busters hotline at 203-493-6984. And this would be a perfect segment. If we miss one of your silver bullet cards that you love to take into a specific campaign, call it in. I would love to have like a little mini segment of silver bullet cards to play on the next episode. But I can't make that happen. That's on you. So we appreciate your time. That's 203-493-6984. Call in and let us know. And then, of course, we will close this night out with some Tentacle Time. But before we get to any of that, I'll start. I have not had a chance to play much Arkham. All of my time, what little time I've had, has gone into working through Dissonant Voices. I'm about halfway through the Hemlock campaign log. It's going well so far, if a little slow. So I appreciate everyone's patience as that rolls out, and as we wait for North to do the magic, getting it onto the Arkham Cards app. But what have you guys been playing lately, Scott?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So Sean, I know we're planning on going through Hemlock Vale together.
Mm-hmm.
I did start a campaign.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay,
I'll allow it.
All right, thank you. Because it finally showed up in Canada. Imagine that. Just a month late. It's fine.
Whew.
I'm not mad or anything. So the investigator that I was most excited to play coming out of the box was Alessandra, just because I love decks that focus around, or maybe take cards that aren't that great in every other deck, but are really great in one deck. Kind of like Luke, right? Like, I love Luke. He's got so many weird cards that work with him.
Yes.
And playing an Alessandra, like going hard on Parlay, what an absolute treasure of a deck that is.
Hard agree.
And just going, so I'm playing across from a killer of sorts. Alessandra is the Clover. I'm playing this with Case. And just going hard clues. Like, Fake Credentials, the leveled up one, is nuts. Nuts good.
Even level 0 is pretty okay for a free action.
It really is. Alessandra essentially having 4 actions per turn is fantastic. I love Vamp, especially the leveled up one where you get to test all 4 skills, especially if it's Fine Close out.
That one is bonkers.
Like, Fine Close, test every skill at 0. Okay. Persuasion, Eavesdrop.
Stir the pot?
You know, I don't have Stir the Pot in here.
Oh, I love Stir the Pot. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, it was on my short list. But
well, find room for the leveled up one, because it will help with some elusive enemies, let me tell you.
Yeah. And then Eldritch Tongue.
Oh
my goodness. Especially with Alessandra, like when you lose a Beguile and you're like, well,
did I though? Yeah, she's a blast. And I will say again that Hemlock feels like kind of the Alessandra show, as far as like the player cards go. She's got so many cool things. And I've been saying it since the first time I watched Justin play Alessandra, and it applies beyond Alessandra. Persuasion fucking rules now, guys. It's so good. It's so good with After the Taboo.
Now, I do have a rules question that you guys might be able to help me with.
Boy, if you're asking, I don't know what hope I could be.
Right.
And maybe this is for listeners and chat. So Eldritch Tongue, you can play a thing from your discard pile, right? An event, spend a charge, whatever. After that event resolves, remove it from the game. When does Beguile resolve?
I would say it resolves after it's discarded, because it remains in play and it has yet to like finalize.
Yeah.
That's what makes sense to me. Similar to wasn't there a ruling for Parallel Agnes and Power Word? As to like, well, does she get to reshuffle it in, and like what is that timing and window? Sure, I think that has happened.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a ruling at some point.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. She's been amazing. She is. Is she now my favorite rogue?
Ooh.
She's up there. Top 3 for sure. Just because of how different she plays and how differently you can build her than every other rogue.
I feel like you're about the 12th person I've heard say those exact words. Like,
I know.
She might not be number 1, but she's like super near the top suddenly.
I spent my chunk of this segment last cast saying she might be my new favorite investigator overall, so she's getting a lot of love.
Yeah, I think my top 3 are Tony,
Yeah.
In no particular order. Sorry.
Good choice.
Tony, Preston, Alessandra. Because of... Well, I like Tony because he's just a murder machine.
Yeah.
Alessandra because she's uses weird cards. And Preston because he turns the game on its head. Like, he just looks at it completely differently.
Yeah.
You like Tony because you can do an accent while playing him.
Hey,
Let's be real.
Yeah. Italian dressing. Yeah, that was...
Oh boy.
Boy. That's a callback.
Boy, I think I'm Winnie, Preston,
He's so good.
and Alessandra with an honorable mention to Safina. That's my tops.
I think Winnie's my honorable mention. Yeah.
Winnie's great.
It's too hard for me to rank. Don't make me do it.
Yeah.
All my babies.
Yeah.
You're already having a go of it, switching up possibly your favorite, and then recently switching up your favorite campaign. Like, you're going through something.
It's just like an existential
I
crisis.
know,
over here.
right?
Let's help you through it.
Is this my midlife crisis? Some people get like fancy cars and break up
mid-game
marriages, and for me, I just switch Arkham Investigators.
Yeah. Must be nice.
I like purple now, Mom. No, it's not a phase. But no answer though. No answer from you. Is that
Well, Alessandro would definitely be up there. Finn would still be up there. So the big problem would be picking number 3, really. I do love Tony a lot because he's so different than a lot of the other rogues, and he's like so good. A lot of times I feel like he gets left out of like top rogue discussions, but he's super good. So Tony would be up there. Winnie would definitely be up there. Let's see, who else would be in the running? Those might be the main ones. I do really like Kaimani as well. So those, I'm not going to solidify a top 3, but those would kind of be the ones in the conversation for me, I think.
I must say that with Kaimani, I don't think I've fully cracked them on what to do, and I feel like the games I've played with Kaimani, I'm super ham-fisted. Like, I just... their vibe doesn't vibe with my vibe.
Yeah.
I'm never sure. Are they like a dodge tank? Are they a killer? Like... are they country? Are they rock and roll? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll say Kaimani is trickier to figure out than they appear at first glance. Like, I think when you first look at their ability, it's like, okay. And then when you actually play, it can be tricky. But yeah, I totally get the vibe thing. I mean, that's how I feel about Preston. Like, there's so many people who love Preston, and me and him just never quite vibe.
And I totally get that because Preston's got a weird vibe.
Yeah.
Justin, how about you? Who are your top 3 greens?
And we're going to start with Monterey Jack.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's because... I mean,
he's a little yellow filled with the candy,
maybe a little too yellow.
I mean, that's why he's the top of my list. Let's all be real. No, I'd start with him. Probably Preston. I don't play rogue that often, so Alessandro is going to be pretty high. Like, just because, very different experience, very cool. So, I'll go with those 3.
Excellent. Well, anyway, sorry, I took us down that path. Scott, you were still talking about.
Oh no, I'm pretty much done. It's the campaign's going great. I've actually we've taken a 2-week pause, but we're gonna get back at it. Alessandra's just super fun. If anyone out there has not played Alessandra yet, it's great. So
excellent. How about you, other twos? Scott, Justin, you've been traveling, so
I don't have much, and we recorded. We're a little tighter than usual on our scheduling here. I've been traveling and then some work stuff, so I actually don't have an update other than I think by the next time we record, hopefully I will be picking up the campaign that I'm running through with my brother and his wife, where we are in Edge and we just finished the city. So looking forward to getting back to that, but nothing new to report.
Cool. Ian, you?
Yeah, as Justin mentioned, it hasn't been too long since we recorded, so I haven't played a ton of Arkham since last time. So no new campaigns, but I have continued my Hemlock campaign, my kind of initial face check campaign with Alessandra and Wilson. I'm not quite done, but I am on the final day, so I'm getting close to the end of my first run through. Definitely the longest it's taken for me to play a new Arkham campaign, but as I mentioned last time, partly just not a lot of time, but partly letting the campaign breathe a little bit since I don't have to rush through it. Definitely been a ride so far. Been enjoying it. Kind of, we gushed a lot about Alessandra last time, and then with Scott this time. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about Wilson. Wilson continues to surprise me. Like, I felt a little underwhelmed at first with, we've talked before about how the all threes stat line can be a little bit of a problem for a lot of investigators.
A snore fest, you mean?
Yeah. And then also, like, it's not like he got a ton of new tools in Hemlock. There was some, but it's nothing like the parlay avalanche that Alessandra received. But he's been doing pretty well. It's kind of like I designed Alessandra and him to be kind of a mix, both flexing, but it's kind of evolved into Alessandra doing most of the cloovering and Wilson kind of shifting more towards hard killer, just the way things have progressed. But the nice thing is Wilson has the flexibility that, I can throw out a flashlight or fingerprint kit when I need to, and he can still help out when need be. So it's nice at least having that option. But the main thing is he's turned into Chainsaw Wilson. And that build has been a lot of fun. Like, without spoiling too much of Hemlock, there's a boss. Spoiler: there's a boss in a scenario.
What?
I know that's blowing people's socks off. And he was able to chew through that boss that had like a ton of hit points in like 2 or 3 rounds, I want to say. Just with the chainsaw, there were a couple of copies, and then with cleaning kit, which lets you get more uses out of it. And then there was a really fun moment where I like ran out of supplies on one copy of chainsaw, and then I drew Wilson's Elder Sign, which lets him swap a tool asset that he already has in play with a tool asset in your hand. So I had the other chainsaw revved up and ready to go. So he just like threw aside one chainsaw and pulled the other out of his back pocket or whatever, and kept sawing at the boss. So yeah, the Chainsaw Wilson build has been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Yeah, he's one that I know I'm not like super consciously excited to try, but I know once I like finalize a build and I'm like, oh, this is literally a toolbox of all the cool items I like. All right, I know I'm gonna like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Cool.
Hopefully he'll get more tool stuff in the future.
And you know what? Controversial take maybe. I'm okay with like a taboo of simply adding the tool trait to Fire Axe. I don't think anyone would be offended by that. I know it's a meme at this point. But I just, it makes sense. Just go, don't be afraid. Just do
a tool. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a tool. It just was like one of the first ones and it didn't get the trait.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things where, sometimes items don't get the trait that makes sense to add them in the future retroactively.
And I've yet to ever play a card game where that's not a problem, where like design expands in a specific area and certain things that would have otherwise been included kind of get left in the dust because they just came out before it got developed. Mm-hmm. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, excellent. So I'm going to call an audible because our voicemails are really meaty this time around. Justin, you want to walk us through the news?
Yes, I can do that. So, we have... Sorry, I'm just scrolling down to it in my notes. First one is, you'll hear this from us until we actually get to BusterCon, but reminder about BusterCon. Dates are September 19th to 22nd at Game Center in Roseville, Minnesota. We have a room block at the Doubletree that's basically right next door. tickets are live. The room block is live. If you just search for BusterCon, it'll take you to our website. There's links there. If you have any trouble finding it, let us know. But it should just take you to where you need to go. We are handling con registration through the Game Center itself, so it will be on their website. Two things of note from their website that have come up since last we got to chat with all of you is, one, there's a glitch on the Game Center's website that if you get to the event from a certain way or see it in like the event feed, it says it's sold out. It's not sold out. I can't imagine we're going to get to a point where we have to capacity limit it, but if it is, we will give you all much more advance notice. So just click into the event and you can register. Don't worry about it. And second is many people have noted that the hours for the Game Center are different than they have been in the past. They are going through some staffing changes there, and so I've been talking to them about that. The two main things to note are that as of right now, they open a little bit later on Thursday, which would be the first day of the con. So we're still talking to them about potentially opening closer to the 10 a.m. the range when they did before. Now I think it's 1 p.m. But more importantly, I've been talking to them about keeping the Game Center open longer on Saturday of Iron Man. For those of us who play, for everyone else who's there, right now they're open for less than 12 hours. And we've kind of decided that's roughly our minimum for what we'd want to do. So in the past, they've been open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We do what we can in that time. Right now it's 10 to 7 on their website. We have talked to them. They have said they will find a way to make it work for us. So nothing set in stone, but if you're worrying about it, you don't need to right now. We trust they're going to find something that works for us. Iron Man's going to have the time it needs, and it's going to be great, and we'd love to see y'all there in September.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Next thing is, so over on the FFG website, they have announced The Darkness Over Arkham. So it's the first Arkham Horror Investigators game book. And so this is in, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little out of my depth on this, but so this is for the upcoming RPG.
It's separate, I guess. So
Okay.
It's more like a choose your own adventure, right? With game mechanics.
yeah, it's like a lot of there's a bunch of them back in the day, like the fighting fantasy game books, and I'm trying to think of what are the other big ones I used to play back in the day. But yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure book, but with game mechanics, so like rolling dice, and so it'll usually be like, oh, test this skill, and then you roll dice, and then it'll have you go to whatever page based on the result. So yeah,
okay.
it's like choose your own adventure book, but with like RPG mechanics mixed in. So almost like playing like a solo RPG.
There was what was it in the past, let's say 5 or 6 years, there was two big Kickstarters for like a group of 4 of those books. I mean, not that that's the only ones that did it, but like this is a thing that's been coming back, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know the ones I'm talking about. Like there was a lot of it was the things that are in the public domain, like a Sherlock Holmes one and a werewolf one and some other things.
Right. Yeah, I know that. I can't remember what company did those, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
one
anyway,
of the interesting ones that one of the interesting things that they're doing it with this, it seems like, is like you kind of get a choice of which Arkham investigators you're gonna play as, but then they're gonna release more over time, so you can kind of choose which investigator you're gonna take each time, even ones that are released in the future. So it's not like tied to that specific game book.
Very cool.
I've been really interested in game books lately, like reading about them and like trying to pick one that I want to get into, because it seems like an awesome thing for traveling, or even just when you're sitting on the couch, you want to play a game, but you don't want to set anything up. You can literally grab your book, couple whatever pieces of paper you have, and some dice, and go.
Yeah.
And now there's an Arkham one.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and hold on 2 seconds. I have these other ones. I'll tell you what they were. Please hold. Please hold.
Holding.
I think I
If anyone out there
remember.
has recommendations for game books, I want like dice rolling and stuff. I don't want just what do you call it? choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one I
are
played
fun.
way back in the day. Maybe someone in chat will know what it's called. It's a pretty famous one, I think, where it's like post-apocalyptic, like racing cars and like smashing cars against each other. I can't remember what it's called. That one was a lot of fun back in the day. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of newer ones though. Like there's been a renaissance. I have some I got that were also from back in the day, which are like Lord of the Rings ones. That were like the one I have is like set during like this Battle of Helm's Deep, for example. So there's a lot of different options.
So I found these ones. So they're just called graphic novel adventures because they're actually a hybrid. They're not just the text. They have graphic novel panels, and within the panels there's different numbers of things and such too. And they're by Van Ryder Games. And so I have the first block, which is one called Captive.
That's right.
One called Tears of a Goddess, Loup Garou, Your Town, and 4 investigations for Sherlock Holmes. But they've done a couple of these. They're pretty neat.
Is Loup Garou just another way to pronounce Rougarou? Is that a werewolf one?
I mean, I think that's the werewolf one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's absolutely claw marks on the front of it.
Okay. That would make sense. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, yeah, check that out over on FFG's website. And then... so for anyone going to Gen Con, they have released the event schedule as of the time we're recording this. I believe event registration is the May 19th.
Yep, that's correct.
So check that out. In addition, we have to do the first part. So I'm just going to read what they have for the description here for the Midwinter Gala.
Yeah.
It's a brand new standalone scenario. Choose a side and uncover the dark schemes at work before Arkham's leaders are met with a terrible fate. Compete against other tables and see who can complete the scenario with the highest score. Keep an eye out this summer to learn more about the horrors in store for Gen Con 2024. So that's the Gen Con scenario. That sounds pretty cool. Looking forward to that. I am still likely to go to Gen Con, but with a potential maybe behind that. So looking forward to that. But then tied to this, I don't see it in our notes, and we can always edit this out if we have to, Sean, but isn't there also an actual, like, essentially almost a cosplay gala?
Yeah,
One evening?
So Caitlin was telling us about that. They're actually doing a themed murder mystery gala. And yeah, it's a full LARP, so there'll be cosplay, and oh man, like that's the sort of thing that sounds so cool, but I just have no idea where to start, and I'm bad with costumes. So
right,
it's the sort of thing
same.
that, other people get to enjoy. But it's
so anyway,
yeah.
lots of cool stuff going on. Excited to see the Gen Con scenario when we can get to it later this year. If anybody's going, check out the actual murder mystery thing if that is your cup of tea. I look forward to hearing about it. I don't think I'll be able to fit it in anyway, and I'm awful at any type of live role playing and such. But yeah, so that's our news.
I'm super excited to see what that gala is about. Like that single word setting for an Arkham scenario. Just if we could get something close to a blown up version of The Last King, where it's, I mean, obviously you have to get clues and you're gonna have to do enemies at some point, but like something that is like, this is a party and that's the scenario. That's awesome.
Yeah, and another word in there, compete. There's a competition aspect. We've never had that before, so that'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out.
That I cannot confirm this, but that to me gives me an idea of who likely designed this. But I will keep that thought to myself for now.
Compelling evidence, but objection speculation.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited to find out more, because like I hope we get alt art fine clothes. If we don't get alt art fine clothes in the gala scenario, I will riot.
Oh no.
You know what? I try to not go out on a limb much, but I'm going to do it here, guys. If we do not get alt art fine clothes from FFG as a part of this event, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Somebody
If only-
remember.
I second
Somebody
that.
If
hold
only
us to
someone
it.
had done fine clothes before at Altart.
I know,
If only.
we can just distribute the doggy one that Nick did before.
We can update it as a Barkham compatible one with art from that.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Super exciting. So let's move on then to the voicemails for no wait, hey, I'm sorry, I'm just all out of whack. Ian, let's do a patron update and then we'll move to voicemails.
Sounds good. So first off, thanks to our board members on Patreon. That's Chris B, Chris H, and Chris M, our conglomeration of Chris's. Morton, Jared, Ian, Philip, Patrick, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, Robert, and Walker. Thanks so much for your huge support of the podcast. And as always, we have a special shout out to a random patron. And that random patron this time around is Privateer. Thank you, Privateer. If we ever need to hire you to destroy ships of opposition fleet, we'll be sure to contact you, because that always comes up. We do also have a job title to give out. And let's hand this off to Scott. Why don't you give out this job title, Scott?
Yeah, you bet. So, our job title is going out to a new patron, Richard Gardner, who goes by Bear. And Richard has been given the title of the Miskatonic University Library Curator of Obscure Texts and Scrolls. I believe that Richard has a very long history with single print copies of documents and various written things. So,
And the last curator retired peacefully. No funny business at all happened there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
I realized the retirement email didn't get sent out, and they left quite quickly. But yeah, everything was above board. Yep.
As
Excellent.
always.
Well, welcome, Bear.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Let's bust into the voicemails.
Yeah.
So we have a fun meta question, and we have a puzzle. Let's do the fun meta question first.
Hey, Mythos Busters. I just finished my face check of Hemlock Vale. I play a couple campaigns a year as a play along with my brother and good friend who both don't live in the city I live in. I started playing around Innsmouth, and then I had just double core in Innsmouth, and I crashed Innsmouth like 5 times before I ever got to the final scenario, and I still don't think I've ever really gotten the win-win out of that one. I think I've played it 6 times at this point. As they came out, me and my brother face checked Edge of the Earth, and we got a victory on that. And then, a year later, I face checked Keys on my own, and I got a victory on that. And I recently replayed it and got, a victory on a different path. And then I just replayed Hemlock Vale and got a victory there too. And I've selected backwards, and I've got TFA, I've got Dunwich, I think I have everything now. And all the old ones, like Dunwich and TFA, I crashed 2, 3, 4 times before I ever get to the final scenario. And the post new release model, I always fail forward all the way to the front. Do you think that's a benefit to the new model? Do you think this is just the way they're designing things to be more kind of like the opposite of how people say that the Lord of the Rings game was, where like it just got more and more hard as you went on? Do I have more cards and I'm better at this thing? What do you guys think about that? Are the new campaigns easier to get to the end, or am I just getting better? I don't know. What do you think? Bye.
I think if any of us say that Scarlet Keys is easy to get to the end, there will be riots in the street.
I mean, you arrive at the end one way or another. I think that's the yes. First interesting thing we have to address is that victory and making it to the last scenario often feel very different.
Yes.
They're not mutually exclusive.
I feel like, yeah, it's interesting because I think we tend to think of difficulty as like a linear thing, that it's gone over time, or at least that's the way we expect it to. I don't know that I necessarily say the early campaigns were harder, but I do think it's not really that linear. I think it's kind of, it just changes with each campaign. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but I think the big thing that's changed is they have seemed to gone away from a lot of the hard stops we used to get in earlier campaigns, where it would just be like, third, fourth scenario of the campaign. Oh, you lost, campaign's over. And we don't tend to get those as much anymore, if at all, really.
Mm-hmm. Or if we do, you have to like absolutely bumble.
Right. Yeah. You go out of your way.
Well, and you also have a little bit of choice now about the path too. Mm-hmm. Whereas you were both locked into what you had to do, and you had an upcoming like pass this check or die.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to piggyback on what you're saying, because I think that's an interesting piece. Is it seems like there's fewer kill shots, kind of embedded into the layers of campaigns in the later campaigns, since like the big box has become the thing. Is that where you guys see the line being drawn to, or do you think that it's a little bit more complicated than that?
I kind of feel like I would agree that there's probably a fewer kill shots. I mean, even the core set had a kill shot, which many people didn't get because you have to absolutely totally fail the first scenario.
True. You have to bungle it really hard.
Yeah, I didn't know for the first couple of years of the game there was a kill shot in the core scenario. But I have a problem thinking that stuff got harder and harder and harder and then suddenly got easier, because I feel like looking at the list, like, so we've Dunwich Legacy, which completely fair. Path to Carcosa had a big smack at the beginning.
Yes.
But I don't think it was like incredibly difficult.
The first time you play The Unspeakable Oath can be a bit of a gut punch too, and that one does end you if you maybe we should spoiler alert some of these things. Not everyone has Carcosa, I guess. That one is a kill shot if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah. But then you go into TFA, which I think is a difficult one. Even if you're like, unless you're peak performing, and then Circle and Done brutal, and then Dream Eaters gets a little easier, like super easy. Then comes Innsmouth, which is super hard or harder, and then you have back to Edge of the Earth, which I consider, I don't want to say cakewalk, but it's an easy one to me. Like I feel like they wavered back and forth.
But even as you were describing that, I think it gets muddy too, because like I'm thinking about Innsmouth. Yes, that's a hard campaign. How many kill shots can you name? Like, at what points can you die in that campaign? Like, because those are almost two separate axes, right? Like, how many times can you potentially just fail off the campaign? But, like, it's hard pretty much all the way through.
Yeah. I think you can die in a Light in the Fog?
That would make sense, given what's going on.
That's the one underneath the lighthouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it wavers.
Yeah.
So I have another question with it if we're done with that part of the discussion.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
And it ties to, it was in the voicemail, but I think we rightfully latch on to the campaigns themselves, but the player card pool, right? Because I think all of us are also, we almost always think of it in terms of the full card pool, because we've been doing this, kind of from the start. And I think they were mentioning in the voicemail that starting with, what was it? I might have heard this wrong, but I heard it as starting with Innsmouth, and so there'd be a core in Innsmouth, and then doing some of the others, and maybe they had already incorporated other player cards. But I'm imagining if someone was using a core and the new, like let's say Innsmouth onward player cards, and then they're probably going to have a very different time.
Ooh, yeah.
Going back to the older stuff, like that's probably going to hit them harder, because some of the cards in there were teched. I mean, we're talking silver bullets in campaigns, right? And so like some of the stuff that came out with those campaigns on the investigator side is naturally going to help tech against it. And if you don't have that, that's going to hit differently.
Yeah, I mean, that is the other part of the equation, right? Is like, what is your knowledge of the player cards? What player cards do you have? How interested are you in min-maxing, and do you even have the knowledge to do that if you're interested in it? because some certain campaigns themselves become incredibly hard when you don't know what you're doing. And, we point out like TFA or TSK. Those are punishing campaigns if you are bumbling around figuring your shit out, which all of us do. But there are some campaigns, like say Dream Eaters, I would point at. It doesn't. I can't think of many ways that like really punishes you for not knowing what the campaign's mechanics are doing in a way that I would call out. So like, I don't know.
I would say it doesn't punish you, but it withholds bonuses, which is very different.
That's true.
Because if you know what you're doing, you can min-max that campaign hard and just get a billion XP and make certain scenarios easy from previous scenarios. But it doesn't, yeah. Because I feel like that some campaigns, it's not so much that if you bumble, you fail. It's if you bumble, you don't get all the rewards. And therefore, it feels harder because you don't get all the bonuses or something like that. I don't know. I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I understand I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
Now we could talk about this endlessly, but one thing I want to ask is kind of an underlying question that I heard out of the voicemail was, do you think the movement to the big box design, where it was all released at once and thus more flexible in the way it can connect, affected the design approach to kill shots? Does it seem more like they want you to see the whole thing, even if you're failing forward and punished the whole time?
It kind of like if they did start to stray away from kill shots, I wonder if it's like, does correlation equal causation?
Sure.
Right? Is it just that they're just like, do we want to move away from kill shots? And then also on the other side of the room, they're like, hey, we're moving to this new expansion style, and it just so happened to coincide? Or was it because of, hey, we're doing this box? Because I honestly feel like maybe in a big box it's easier to put the kill shots in because the person has the whole campaign and they go, oh, I'll go a different way. But like if you get to pack 6 or pack 4 of the old expansion and you get kill shotted, you might not want to continue to pack 5 or pack 6 and get kind of demoralized that way.
Sure. Well, and yeah, that is kind of what I was reaching for, is that the like discrete releases almost kind of creates like you made it to episode 3 this time, try again. You got a month before episode 4 comes out. Haha. Like, I don't know how much, and I don't think anyone had those exact thoughts, don't mistake me, but like that kind of energy to the design where maybe it didn't feel quite so weird to just be like, all right, and they die here if they fail, and that's fine because campaign's half out and they'll be playing more. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting to ponder on. Well, dear listeners, if you think you have an idea, please feel free to call in on this one too. That's 203-493-6984. Okay, now, the second voicemail I'm excited to get to because it is minimal, and you know what? I'm just going to let it speak for itself. Let's start there, and then I'll do my thing.
ESA player card number 309, TCU player card numbers 186, 187, 190, and 273, TSK player card number 58 prior to official ruling, SHV player card number 37.
Okay.
What?
So,
what just happened?
So
amazing.
I think I'm 75% sure I know what the answer is because I peeked ahead because Scott was like, are we sure like this isn't something weird? So I peeked a little bit ahead just to like clear it. I'm fairly certain it is beautiful and brilliant and benign. I want you guys to puzzle this out live, and listeners at home and here live in the chat, feel free to throw in. Let's go. I have a list here. TFA player card 309. So what do we got then?
Okay, I think I found it. TFA player card 309.
8675309.
Wouldn't that be great at the end of this? It's just like song lyrics in card title form.
What's a SHV?
FHV. Feast of Hemlock Vale.
F.
Yeah.
Open your ears, Scott.
Hey, it's the newest one. Like, it always, there's an adjustment. I don't know if anyone else's brain works this way, but when a new campaign comes out and there's a new acronym to learn, it takes my brain a minute.
Yeah.
Sweet.
What's the next?
All right,
one
what's card 309, guys?
Oh,
309 is all in.
all aim. Yeah.
309 is all in.
Okay.
That level 5 rogue card. Skill, right?
Yep.
Okay, TCU player cards.
Okay.
186.
It's the 45 Thompson.
187.
Another 45 Thompson.
So the leveled up
upgraded
ones. Okay.
Yeah.
So Guardian and Rogue.
Yeah.
190.
The Tennessee Sour Mash.
Okay. And 273 from TCU as well.
The Mark 1 grenades.
Mark 1.
Sounds like it's at that point we lost you, Scott.
Okay, then we have TSK
Okay.
58. Prior to an official ruling, and that part loses me, but maybe someone else knows the applicable official ruling here.
Oh boy, I need to look at the card. Okay.
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Feast of Hemlock Vale player card 37.
That is a flurry of blows.
Okay.
All right, boys, puzzle it out. Now that we've read the list, I am 95% sure I know what this is.
I gotta look at
I'm
this.
terrible at
Grey's
puzzles.
Anatomy.
I have no idea.
Okay, so I'm looking up the Grey's Anatomy thing to see if that helps us.
So I'll give you a hint that might steer your minds in the right direction. This is an answer to a question we ourselves asked.
Huh. We asked this question.
Let's see.
Hmm.
Man, I wish I listened when we talked.
I know, right? That's the hard part.
And to be fair, we asked it last episode. So Scott, you weren't here, but you did edit, so you did have access to the thought.
I do remember a question getting asked at one point.
Did we ask if there were cards that were bad but you could play with anyway?
Oh, you're just reaching in the right direction.
Didn't we ask cards that came out and no investigators could take them at the time they came out?
The investigators in the box they were released in,
right? Yeah, that's
what
it
in the
was.
set they were released in couldn't take them, and that is correct.
Okay, okay,
That's the one.
Oh, and that Grey's Anatomy ruling makes sense because it had to do with allowing
healing
investigators to actually take it.
Okay.
Okay, very clever.
I
like that.
Far too jaded from decades on the internet because I thought this was going to lead to some sort of Rickroll.
Yeah.
I understand why your hackles were raised in that particular direction.
But yeah, this was great. Also would have accepted a Rickroll.
If someone could Rickroll me by playing me Arkham cards, yeah, I'll accept that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
So I thank you, anonymous caller, who just dropped the info that we asked for with no preamble, postamble, or signature. Your service is appreciated. Those are other player cards that investigators couldn't take in the same box.
Huh.
All right. Well, let's move on then to our main topic for tonight. I know we've already kind of like scraped into it a little bit in the voicemail discussion, but silver bullets for each campaign. So every so often we talk about how each campaign kind of has its own flavor, its own challenges, its own mini meta. And in particular, we get into this in Iron Man, I think, more than in any other discussion. Mm-hmm. There are cards for each campaign that are just like, really specifically good for some reason against that campaign. So that's what we're talking about tonight. So I think it bears mentioning that scope-wise, we should probably stick to the regular version of the campaigns, since Return 2s have kind of become a little bit inaccessible. Also, I don't know them as well, and I would be relying on you guys a lot more to talk about them if we go in that
totally
direction.
Fair.
And yeah, so let's start at the top. How would you guys kind of identify / define silver bullets in kind of the way we're talking about, just to kind of set the stage here?
I feel like silver bullets are cards that, if you have it in your opening hand in certain scenarios or in that campaign, that it either trivializes the game or makes it much easier, like to a point of where you're like, I could hand my deck off to somebody else who doesn't know my deck, doesn't know this campaign, and they would have a very easy time.
Sure.
And Scott, can I clarify? Because again, I will be asking more like some clarifying questions here, because you guys know far more about this. But when you're saying like have an easier time, you're like easier time and kind of stomp through, not just easier time playing Arkham.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of silver bullets as like a specific answer to a specific problem that a campaign poses, because like there's that list of cards that we all kind of have in our heads that are like the strongest cards in Arkham. And it's like, of course, those are going to be good for, any campaign, any situation. But I kind of think of silver bullets as like, they're very specifically good for a specific situation that you're going to encounter in these campaigns.
So I have another question then, based on those definitions, unless you have more to add to the definition, Sean.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we're going to break this down by campaign. Are there any silver bullets for all campaigns? Like, is there anything that's so silver bullety it applies everywhere?
Well, if you happen to draw Luke in your opening hand.
As you are wont to do when you play Luke.
So you want to trivialize Arkham. Slides the chair across.
Are you the
Luke.
type of speedrunner who loves clipping through walls? You have the investigator for you.
And no, I don't. And like, I don't know. Luke is just so abnormal with his ability to leave the map. It's, I don't know if I'd call him a silver bullet so much as like a glitch.
A glitch. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally as a glitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that he exists. He like,
yes.
If you were to follow like ascetic designer restraint, Luke should not exist, but it is a blessing that MJ was like, nah, fuck it. Let it roll. Do it. He's so cool.
So anyway. if we're talking Luke, then another question for me. I understand the issues that Luke can pose to the game. Does Gloria get to that level or not?
That's a good question. I don't. You in a way, but in a much more like straightforward way. Luke like can bend the rules of the game and what the game itself, the encounter deck, is trying to do to you, whereas Gloria just universally like flattens the curve of unpredictability in as far as the encounter deck goes, which matters a lot. So I don't know if she's a silver bullet. She's just really good.
Yeah, I feel like she doesn't. But I don't know. Maybe silver bullets get rid of problems, and she gets rid of problems. Like she's up there, but I do think that like Luke he plays outside the bounds of the game, and Gloria plays with the bounds of the game.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I wasn't fishing for I wasn't fishing for an answer there because I really don't know. I mean, she's really good. I enjoy playing her, and I think that's a good distinction, Scott, for how they approach it differently.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I would also throw out there too, not necessarily a silver bullet, but grizzled. If you do your research, I feel like grizzled can be an amazing skill card that you get to play like 14 times a game. Just because you can like go through whichever keywords, and this does take time, or there's a few websites, people have written articles about what keywords you should use with grizzled, and if you draw grizzled in your opening hand and you use it appropriately and you keep on pulling grizzled back like every turn or every second turn, it's a pretty good card that just helps you in any campaign.
And then also to tag on to that, if you're Silas in any campaign with grizzled.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard when talking about Silver Bullet for all of Arkham, because then that like line between like Silver Bullets and just like it's a good card kind of starts blurring. There is one particular card I can think of, but I'm not sure whether to mention it now or at the end, because when I was compiling my list of like cards for particular campaigns, this one kept coming up, so I'm like, maybe this is just a card for every campaign.
All right.
Okay, so moving on then to the very beginning. Night of the Zealot, oddball, in my opinion. Hope you guys agree. It's shorter, and the first two scenarios are basically tutorials on like, hey, this is what Arkham can do. I don't think you like talk about the metagame of Night of the Zealot until you hit scenario 3, because like anything you could say about Midnight Masks is just a lesson in action economy, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Just do things as fast as possible.
And the Gathering is literally just a tutorial on how Arkham works. So
yeah,
I don't know how much there is to say about like actually teching for that. But you know, as you can say with anything in Arkham, of course, in Midnight Masks, if you plan to like go for shoot the moon, action compression, quick movement, clue compression, all really good things. But you know, you can say that about everything.
Yeah.
Dealing with Doom enemies, of course, Midnight Masks is a big thing there. When I was thinking about Night of the Zealot, and I was thinking about specific Night of the Zealot challenges, the main thing that came to my mind was the rush of the cultists you missed in. And at this very moment, it occurs to me that I should spoiler warning. We are talking about specific campaigns. Come in and out as you'd like. We're going in release order. Here we go. But when you get the rush of cultists that you miss in the Devourer below, if you're not expecting it and or don't have an answer for it, that's a big moment.
Yeah, so, and I think you nailed the nail. You nailed it on the head, whatever that saying is. I don't think there's anything in particular that Night of the Zealot folds to, because it's just teaching you basic Arkham things, and it doesn't have like crazy hijinks going on. I think maybe elusive, I guess, in the final scenario to get out of that area once the bad guys come in, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's
the only other thing that occurred to me is get some kind of ally tutoring if you're planning on going for that resolution. You know the one.
Yeah.
I think the one silver bullet that popped out to me, I agree with everything you're saying, that it's just the kind of campaign it is. It's so short. It's not really anything in particular you can pick out. But the one thing I was thinking of is for the Doom enemies in particular, I think String of Curses is a really good silver bullet card. This is a mystic event that lets you like delete an enemy that has one or more Doom on it. You just straight up defeat it. So I think it's useful for those kind of enemies that pop up in Night of the Zealot.
We're gonna mention String of Curses a few times tonight, I promise you.
Yes. Yep. For sure.
All right. So then moving on to Dunwich, I would say still largely vanilla Arkham, but it did have a couple things going on. Namely, the first one that popped to my mind was Beyond the Veil, right?
Yep.
So
for sure.
If it decks you, it deals what was at the time unsurvivable damage, though now all you need to do is be purple and play Deny Existence, and you're fine.
Yes.
So Deny Existence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's a question too to throw out, like canceling, like Ward of Protection level 2. Is that a silver bullet to most things?
No, I would. I like. We are quickly outlining here the just solidly good and solves general questions cards, which is where I
Yeah.
would put Ward 2
right.
versus
Yeah.
the silver bullets. Fully agree. So, do you think Deny is kind of there too? I'm thinking like the lowest effort you can expend to block 10 damage is the only reason I brought it up.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Big Kahuna Deny is just a great card, and I run it in every purple deck. I mean, yes, that's a valid take. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. So maybe it belongs in the first category.
Yeah. Again, it's tricky. I think along the same line, Survivor has a few options there, like Devil's Luck, Perseverance, potentially, like these cards that are just straight up canceling a chunk of damage.
Mm-hmm. Something I should have thought of when we were thinking about silver bullets that are just generally silver bullets. Alter Fate. Level 3 Alter Fate in particular, though level 1 is fine too. There are so many really threatening treacheries in a lot of these campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And for fast and 1 cost, you can just like point and delete, click and delete a treachery. Super good.
Yeah.
I do think it matters more in some campaigns than others, but I do think also that it belongs more in the just generally good.
Yeah. So Alter Fate was the card I was mentioning earlier that I kept coming up over and over, and I was like, okay, maybe it's just generally.
Yeah.
Because it's just the solution, and most campaigns will have at least kind of 1 or 2 big treacheries that like will sit there and kind of hamper you. But I do think like in something like Dunwich, like all these years later, we're still thinking about Beyond the Veil. So
Yep.
there are some that are more kind of impactful than others that you do want to, like, you might specifically carve out room in your deck for Alter Fate just for that one treachery.
What about others?
Quantum Flux. to-
Yes.
Reshuffle your discard pile into your deck and draw a card. So hopefully you don't get milled. It doesn't get milled, but if you're getting low on your deck and you have Beyond the Veil in play, then yeah.
Seems super good.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, any burst healing is going to be really good, or any big soak is going to be really good against Beyond the Veil, but I don't know. I feel like that gets more marginal. I wouldn't necessarily call that a silver bullet so much as a solution.
Yeah.
Now we're wandering into like yet the third of this weird Venn diagram. So what other problems? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, one of the big problems in Dunwich is a few of the enemies, especially the broods, and being able to mind wipe them is really great. Like, that is a card, if I can take, I'm probably taking, just because it answers, a problem.
I want to take a quick aside and say that I appreciate big threatening enemies not having elite. And I feel like the design has gotten so petrified of that. You know what? Like, I get it, but it's kind of fun to do cool things with big enemies sometimes.
Yeah.
I had a really fun time playing Return to Dunwich with Power Word.
Yes.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
Peak Arkham.
Power Word's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, the other one along those lines that always came up in Dunwich is Waylay for similar reasons, that you can just like instantly defeat a non-elite enemy if you can pass the test. Because aside from the broods, there's also like a few other big enemies in Dunwich, like the spheres that like, you know, are annoying for various reasons, but they're just like a big chunk of hit points. So it's nice to have some options where you just instantly get rid of them to save time.
Yeah, and like particularly, and I don't know if this makes a difference because I'm also I first wanted to throw in and Servant of the Lurker too, But then I was like, oh, but Servant of the Lurker has victory points. And I think the worst thing about Conglomeration of Spheres is not that it has 6 hit points. It's that it has no victory points. So like you're expending all these resources and not even clearing it from the deck, not even getting any XP. Like, yeah, like Monster Hunter. Silver bullet for Conglomeration of Spheres. Such a good time saver.
And like on that note, you mentioned a card earlier, Sean, earlier in the episode, Persuasion, which like for those enemies that are annoying a big chunk, but they don't have victory points, like sure, like just get them back in the encounter deck. They might pop up again later. They probably will, but like it gets rid of the problem for now.
That card is S tier now.
Yeah.
Hot take. Bold but true. Any other Dunwich silver bullets that come to mind? Again, that's about as like vanilla as a full campaign gets, but yeah, it's got some specific things going on.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like looking back now, when we got Dunwich, it was like, whoa, this is so crazy, it's so cool. And then now it's just kind of like, wow, this is a really long Night of the Zealot.
Yeah,
like it's and it's fun. Like it is a good campaign. I love it. It's still got its fun stuff. It's just realizing, looking back now, it's like it's just more solid base Arkham.
I don't think that we old heads can accurately convey to new people who have come to the game more recently what the world of Arkham was like when all we had to play was Night of the Zealot and the Dunwich Legacy, which was the case for like a long period of time. I don't know. You just look at them differently. Anyway, moving on to Carcosa. Ian, since you recently admitted that you now hate Carcosa, why don't you tell us what you need for the campaign?
You're getting really good at that bait, Sean.
Well,
this man hates Carcosa.
You started a social media campaign to get others to hate it too. It was weird, man.
Got a little toxic, TBH.
So the big thing that always sticks out in my mind about Carcosa more than anything else is just like how much horror it throws at you. Obviously in the last scenario specifically, but just in general, I kind of think of it as like, which makes sense, but like the kind of story that it is, it's all about your sanity getting shattered. I mean, I guess that's Lovecraftian in general, but specifically Carcosa, like that's what that story's all about. So I tend to think of anything that's gonna like soak horror or heal horror is gonna be especially valuable in Carcosa.
Yeah. Also, there's a few enemies in there that they take less damage from non-relics, which I find can be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think of one particular investigator as kind of a silver bullet for Carcosa for me is Calvin, like when you get him into that last scenario.
Yeah.
And just racks up the horror and just gets insane stats at that point.
Yeah. He's pretty nuts. He can be pretty nuts.
Yeah.
The other thing we've listed here is these straight intellect tests. Yeah, they can be pretty big. So I think the silver bullet to that is taking a 5 intellect.
Yeah, I feel like especially playing Curtain Call for the first time, that I remember like everyone kind of having that reaction of like, why are all these shrouds so incredibly high?
So I think for Carcosa, one weapon that I always take is Enchanted Blade, just because it is relic traded. It's a good weapon to start with, and then you add in the fact that you're able to take down those relic scary enemies, or scared of relic enemies.
Yeah, it's a good one. There's
I
the
think to the. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. I'm thinking of because there's it's the poltergeist, right? Is that what that
Mhm.
is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like in terms of like the horror soak healing, like this feels like it should be Carolyn's big campaign too, but I haven't actually tried that to confirm. But like that's her
Yeah.
whole shtick, so you would think so.
Yeah. I do have to throw out there the Key of Ys.
Yeah.
Because in Iron Man Carcosa, like, that was nuts.
Yes, the game that got that card taboo.
Yeah.
That always sticks
looking
out
at Maxine
in my
in
mind.
the face. Yeah. Oh. Sorry, Maxine. Yeah, and then I think like fine clothes in the first two scenarios, specifically the second one, I think is the one of the most silverest bullets of bullets, just because of all the parlay tests you have to do.
That's remind me of that because it's been a while since I played. That's the
dinner
party.
Yeah, the dinner party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would argue fine clothes are great in Curtain Call too because of the Geist enemies. They're like one like kind of weird way for someone who's not playing with relics or magic to actually do damage to the Geists.
Yeah. Yeah. Fine clothes. Good card.
Like that card has had such a wild ride through the curve of Arkham card goodness.
Sure has.
All right. Well, let's move on to the first like real traumatizing campaign. The Forgotten Age.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that literally because one of the big things that TFA introduced is that, hey, you're going to take trauma in this one.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess to address that problem, I don't know if there's any silver bullets, but healing?
Or bring Calvin.
Or just be Calvin.
And just lean into it.
Yeah. I guess the silver bullets for the trauma would be taking blankets in the interlude. For real.
Don't take blankets. It's a waste of time.
I mean, is trauma specific enough focus in TFA that you would look at Thermos? Like, that's the only card I could think of that actually specifically calls out trauma.
Good question. No.
I'm glad.
Have any of you ever?
You had that answer queued up.
No, okay, I know that came off a little spicy, and that wasn't directed at you, Ian. I love you. But like, how many times have you looked at Thermos and not taken it? And why is it like 100% of the time?
Yeah.
It's the kind of card that seems good, but it's 4 cost and it's slow healing. And at the end of the day, like if you're rocking trauma, there's just better options. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting how little calls it out. I guess that's future design space for the player card pool, right? Like you could think of cards that like trigger off how much trauma you have. That's really, we don't really have anything in that regard.
I would love to see that design space explored. Like playing from behind mechanics are a thing that Arkham could use more of.
Yeah.
Yeah, outside of Survivor. I understand that's like almost the entire design concept of Survivor, but still. So TFA also introduced vengeance enemies, where it was like, hey, before, like anytime an enemy shows up, you just hit them until they die, and then you move on. But vengeance, maybe you do something different. Because they make your time worse if you kill them. So I guess to my mind, any of those cards that we've talked about so far that like remove an enemy without technically defeating them and adding them to the victory display. So like Waylay. Where were the other ones? Persuasion.
Yeah.
Close call. Oh no, close call.
Close call shuffles in. Yeah, you evade and shuffle in. Yep.
Yeah, I think the other route is those cards are great, and then the other, like, because I mean, to me, the answer to vengeance is you just evade everything. It is kind of the evade cycle.
Yeah, well, everything looks like a nail when you're a hammer, Ian.
Right. But that's just a mechanic. That's not really a silver bullet. I think some other silver bullet options is if you don't get them off the board, just like tie them down somehow. So you have like power word, obviously, where you just trap them and make them do your bidding, or something like bind monster, where you just keep preventing them from redding. There is, I believe it's the Seeker card, a relatively new one, Transmogrify, which like turns them massive, but they can't move anymore. So you can just kind of.
I love that card so much.
If you're happy with them, just like enlarging them and just having them stay in one location, but you don't have to worry about them anymore. That's a solution.
I also, hear me out, handcuffs.
Agree.
Because there are so many humanoid
Brotherhood cultists, yes.
Yes. And also the snake dudes. There's so many snake people.
True.
There are.
Arms that can be handcuffed. Yeah. And yeah, but
I will never not laugh at the idea of handcuffing a snake.
That sounds like a euphemism.
Handcuff the old snake.
Yeah. This is a family show. I'm sure it's not at all.
Going for victory points this time.
Yeah. Oh. The old mind wipe.
Yeah.
Was quite the close call. All right.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like TFA, it hits hard. It's kind of got ways you play, but I don't think there are too many like mechanics beyond what we've already said that just kind of need some kind of silver bullet. Can you guys think of anything else?
Well,
no, I think. Well, yeah, go ahead, Ian.
It's not for the campaign in general, but I think the big scenario we usually think about when approaching TFA is City of Archives specifically, because it's so weird and it can end your campaign. Like, I didn't think about this until now, really, but are there any silver bullets for that scenario specifically?
I mean, because what's the core of the problem there? I'm just trying to...
I guess it turns off your investigator ability and reduces your skills to kind of a low baseline.
Yeah, so like skill cards in general, grizzled, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Permanence? Because you get to keep non-item permanence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of those are just silver bullets or if they're just helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's particular treacheries that really mess you up. So maybe that's another Alter Fate case. Potentially.
Yep. Many of them are just play Alter Fate.
Yeah. Good card.
Play Alter Fate, forehead. Even if you have to do the level 1 version, it's probably still a good deal. All right, so then moving to TCU. What are the TCU problems? And why are most of them willpower tests or hex treacheries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the goodness, what is it? The treacheries. Yeah, that's sticking your play area. That's
power is the other like main trait on those treacheries, right? It's like power and hex are the main ones. Maybe curse. I feel like curses are more of the like revelation abilities and not so much like the stay and play abilities.
Yeah.
Anyway, have willpower, I guess. But as we've mentioned, this to me is the only time I've felt that Alter Fate is a silver bullet, because the way that TCU tries to bury you in treacheries, or in particularly Fate of Fools, get a treachery out and then combo you on the next times you see it. There are so many very, very specific to TCU solutions for the stacking treacheries that Alter Fate like really specifically addresses in a way that even it doesn't in other campaigns, I would argue.
Yeah.
And I did argue because I played a looping Ultra Fate campaign Patrice through this Iron Man. But aside from that one, like logical reasoning, do we have any terrors among those treacheries? Does that even like factor into that conversation? I think they're all like hex and power.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some, because there's usually at least some, but not as much as those other traits.
Well, I guess while we ponder on that, I'll also say that like you want to make sure you hit all your investigate tests, because one of the main mechanics in TCU, i.e. haunted, will absolutely like make your day worse if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that means just like higher intellect boosts or tricky ways to get clues off of locations, read the signs I think is particularly good in TCU, because that just turns haunted off entirely.
Yeah, I would consider that a silver bullet for the campaign. Like, it's just generally a good card, but I mean, it specifically calls out, like, ignoring haunted. So
it's one of the few times that Diana can count that as a cancel card, as if she's playing it through TCU. That's how I know it. God, what else does TCU kind of present?
There are those circle tests.
Ooh, yeah.
So I think just when building your deck, keep those in mind. But there is that giant, was it the 20 cost or 20 difficulty at the end? And just any way to do an auto success is pretty good.
I would say silver bullets for that specifically might be any number of those skill cards that have like 2 different icons, but they gain 2 additional of each of those icons if the right conditions are met, right? Like curiosity or any number of the other skills that do the things that I said.
Yeah.
Those are really good against the circle test because they actually count.
Yeah. I do think the shuffle into the enemy or shuffle them into the deck thing, especially for the dancers at the end. Oh my god.
Oh my god, the dancers. Yeah, I suppose talking about like silver bullets for before the Black Throne is probably its own episode.
Yeah.
That's like the core of TCU. It's like the rest of it, whatever. Before the Black Throne, like, yeah, I think even when we were planning the Iron Man, we spent like 80% of our attention on Black Throne specifically.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's murderous.
Yeah.
And when it came down to it, thank God we did, because that came down to like the last turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a stressful game.
Yes, agree.
I did not like.
I should watch that again. Our TCU Iron Man is out there on YouTube, and while it was 17 hours to stream, I don't regret it.
Mm-hmm. Our Dream Eaters is also.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did that one straight on the table too.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's tough speaking about silver bullets for Black Throne though, or other scenarios like that where it's so predicated on like the RNG of what the right locations are gonna be. Like there's not really a silver bullet for that other than use movement tricks to get where you need to go as fast as possible.
Yeah.
At least that I can think of.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't know if it counts as a silver bullet because it's not like the enemies in question are like super threatening. But there are some enemies that will you're better off to use a quick spell or relic to dispatch them. So any spells or relics that deal like 3 or more damage are very, very good in TCU.
Yeah.
All right, so then moving to Dream Eaters. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. I feel like Dream Eaters... I hesitate greatly to call it Vanilla Arkham, but I don't think it had like a big driving mechanic that challenged the players in a very specific way, in the same way that a lot of campaigns do. We have Swarm, and I love Swarm. It's a really cool mechanic, but I don't necessarily know that drives much as far as player strategy goes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like I think Swarm is something you just need to like quote unquote be aware of. But as far as dealing with it, your evasion tricks still work because you can evade the whole stack. And then, I mean, just bring some AoE.
Yeah.
Like some stuff that hits every enemy at the board or whatever. And most of them are 1 health. like a lot of the swarm cards I find are very small, so you don't necessarily need to go super hard. But,
Question, because I haven't thought about this until just now because we've already talked about it so much. How many of those cards that we mentioned to remove enemies without defeating them work against swarm enemies? Like if you waylay like the lead card of the swarm, not any of the swarm cards, but like the main enemy, like if it has a bunch of swarm cards, do those just fall off after it gets defeated? Or does it just
they stay in play? But that doesn't make sense how they would stay.
Would it just defeat a swarm card? Like how does waylay work against
I think
swarm?
it's the wording of the swarm rules specifically. I have to look them up again, but I think they cover it.
Or like, you know, along the same lines, things like persuasion, where if you choose to shuffle the specific lead enemy that's like holding the swarm together, it really ties the whole swarm together into the deck. Does that count as like defeating the whole thing?
Oh, so the swarm rules are each swarm card can be attacked, dealt damage separately. The host enemy cannot be defeated while it still has swarm cards underneath it.
That's really important.
Yep.
But defeated
only blocks waylay, not persuasion.
Yeah, so for waylay specifically. Huh.
So the answer is some work and some don't, ultimately.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if you mind wipe a swarm enemy, can you then defeat it and all of its swarm cards just fall off because it no longer has the swarming keyword? So like, what are they even there for?
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, ultimately, I don't.
I think the swarming keyword brings the swarms into play, but then at that point, each swarm card has its own like innate swarm
is its own
rules.
thing already.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Swarm rules in effect.
There we go. We got the Star Wars CCG reference.
We did it. We did it. Yeah. You drink for Lord of the Rings. What do we do for Star Wars CCG?
Play a game of Star Wars CCG.
All right, I accept.
I mean, I just assume whenever we're recording that Scott just is playing simultaneously a game of Star Wars CCG.
Don't tempt me for
That's a secret, Ian. He's always playing Star Wars CCG.
Right? That's my secret, Captain. Asteroid rules are always in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dream Eaters, like you said, like the swarming thing is the big thing, but it's mostly just like at this point, once we got to this campaign, I think this is when we started getting a lot of big maps. Like once we start talking about the next few campaigns, it's just big maps all the way down. Not to say earlier campaigns didn't have those, but I just feel like that's what kind of sticks out about these later campaigns. So anything that's like movement tricks is going to be helpful. Like I think I remember us in Dream Eater specifically talking about like open gate for some of the scenarios and those kind of tricks.
Yeah. And I kind of go back and forth on that one in particular because like Scott and I have speed run the Dream Eaters campaign several times between us and together at this point. And speed is important, but sometimes like the big movement tricks like scout ahead kind of fall flat in some of the smaller maps. So like shortcut great, scout ahead maybe okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Elusive.
Like, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like
it's interesting. And it also depends on what side of the campaign you're talking about, of course.
Yeah.
But then there's certain scenarios where like because I think Dream Eaters is another one like TCU where I care more about silver bullets for one particular ending scenario versus the whole campaign, which most of the Dream Eaters is fine, and then I can't even remember the name of the scenario with Nyarlathotep.
Where the Gods Dwell.
Where the Gods Dwell, one of the hardest ending scenarios. So that's one where I think of like something like the upgraded shortcut when you get to that final segment of that campaign.
Yeah,
Just put it on the hub. So anything where there's like a hub that you can just kind of use that to rocket back and forth, that can be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Justin, returning to what you were talking about earlier, if Gloria can be called a silver bullet anywhere, it is very specifically where the gods dwell. I'm willing to call her a silver bullet there because I've seen it.
Yeah, we all experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also something like On the Hunt.
Yes,
just because of the final. Like that one.
That is a great silver bullet for where the gods dwell. Works so differently in that scenario specifically compared to anywhere else.
Well, I think the campaign is so short too that On the Hunt can just be a good card.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. God, and I'm just trying to think like the website. I don't want to call it vanilla Arkham, but it doesn't pose any problems that, aside from Swarm, that make me go, you should play this in website.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Swarm. AoE cards.
Yeah.
Stir the pot. The blasted dynamite.
Yeah, Storm of Spirits.
Wait, what's the
Dynamite Blast?
Dynamite Blast, Storm of Spirits. Yep, all good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Innsmouth, boys. Innsmouth.
Oh boy.
The final of the old release model, and a very brutal and wet and scaly entry at that.
I gotta ask, just based on playing this game, are half the cards in all of Innsmouth locations?
Sure feels like it.
It feels that way sometimes. And like,
because that's
and like the city of Innsmouth specifically has like 3 or 4 different versions of those same locations essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, big maps. So movement important.
Yep.
This is like the opposite of the Dream Eaters, where those giant movement spells or events are really good.
Yes, so this is where Open Gate, particularly Devil Reef, but I would say throughout the campaign, still really good. I would say with the deep ones mechanic, where they do shitty shit when they engage you, any enemy management cards that you can deal with enemies without ever having them engage you are really good.
Yep.
Improvised Trap is one I used to pretty decent effect in Innsmouth.
Yeah.
Scott, Luke Robinson is one that you...
Yeah, like we talked about Luke as silver bullet for Arkham in general, but I think if you're going to pick out a campaign, it's probably this one. For Luke.
I would agree.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Barricade in Luke was nuts in this. Like that was even in there was the one scenario, was it called the driving too fast?
Horror in High Gear.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
I'm just thinking about Scott on Falcor now. That's the only place my mind can go. We had that scenario so on lock that Scott got to just like befriend a winged one and ride it around the level.
Completely trivialize that scenario.
Yep. Yeah, it was that was a fun game.
Yeah, and to your point, Sean, of like the big other thing for Innsmouth is those engagement effects that a lot of enemies have. Like, there's a reason why I chose a sniper build for Innsmouth, because like any sniper-based cards are going to be good silver bullets, literally in this case, for Innsmouth.
Yeah, I'm trying to think beyond movement and dealing with enemies. I don't know. Innsmouth's just generally hard. What gets you through? Like, good level 0 builds are silver bullets for Innsmouth.
Yeah.
You got to make it out of the pit.
Open Gate was also bonkers.
Yeah.
Like, that one it felt like cheating as well.
Open Gate, or I would say elusive, I guess pre-taboo.
Yeah.
Would be, I mean, pre-taboo elusive is pretty great in most campaigns, but
Yeah. I think on Your Feet is a card that I use more in Innsmouth than any other campaign. It's kind of another, because then there's lots of movement tricks, but that's the one that allows you to avoid the engagement altogether, which is important for Innsmouth.
It is both movement and enemy management. That is where this Venn diagram converges. Excellent. And then also anything that helps you deal with the goddamn Deep One Bull. Anything. Literally anything. I would consider anything a silver bullet if it just makes that enemy chill the fuck out. Handcuffs. Yes, there we go. Thanks, Big Kahuna. That's what I was reaching for. Yeah. Slap some handcuffs on that bull.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Again, euphemism with handcuffs.
Yeah.
That was barely a euphemism. Edge of the Earth in particular. So we're finally breaking into kind of getting back to the conversation from the voicemail into the new campaign model. What challenges does Edge of the Earth specifically deal to you? Do you have to deal with?
I think dealing with frost tokens, so bag, like you essentially have possible more auto fails. Essentially, so I think bag manipulation can be really good. Tekalilis.
Yeah, I think the problem with frost tokens is they can be auto fails, and they also mess up your bag math a little bit. I think anything that lets you like fish out more tokens and choose, like say Jacqueline's probably this is a good campaign for her, or lets you cancel them.
Well, and if we're talking post taboo, there have been a lot of purple cards in particular that got a boost to like their effect being expanded to seeing a symbol token. So I don't know if it's necessarily a silver bullet, but those cards in particular get better in Edge, where you will see an additional symbol token from time to time, and can do something cool with it.
Yeah. Giant maps again.
Yes,
again.
Not necessarily a silver bullet, but very helpful.
And there, especially in Ice and Death, there are a few locations that have like 3 per clues on it. So anything you can like plop down to like slurp up a ton of clues is going to be really good there. But that's maybe in category 1 because that applies to pretty much all of Arkham Horror, the card game. Now, Tekalili is another interesting mechanic, one of the other primary mechanics in Edge, and it's one that I had a harder time figuring out, like what defense is there, what resistance can there be, because they're just part of your deck. Like they just happen.
Like the only thing I could think of when I was thinking of this is it doesn't help you deal with Tekalili itself, but because for me the problem with Tekalili is one, it does whatever bad stuff it's gonna do. But the other is it takes away a card draw that you would have had, like whatever card that you were going to draw. That sometimes hurts more, honestly. Like at the end of the round, okay, let me see what I draw. It's going to help me, and then it's a dumb Tekalili. So, but these aren't like card draws isn't really a silver bullet, I guess, but it's an answer.
Yeah, or play Danforth.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who's the only companion not to have a first name because Lovecraft did not give him a first name.
I would argue also, just for the Tekalilis, the what's her name? The mystic ally that was designed by a council, I think. She's
Ikiak.
Inuit. Yes. If you're willing to take the tank the negative stats and you just soak up all the Tekalilis.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I have a couple of Ikiak builds where that's what you do, and you're like, I don't care about my willpower or intellect, so I'll just take them all. That's cool.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, Edge doesn't have like, I don't want to call it like an easy campaign because it can be pretty hard, but I don't think it has many like you would call it on the easy side, Scott.
I think out of the 3 boxes,
I would
easiest.
agree to. It is the easiest of the 3 post box campaign.
Yeah. I think especially the ending scenario of Edge of the Earth is a little bit easier than some of the others.
I'd say
I think the only other mechanic from Edge that I can think about is just a lot of treacheries that attach to locations, but that just seems like more Alter Fate bait, really.
I mean, I'm always here for it.
Yeah.
Or play Ellsworth. Which I normally do. Ellsworth is my favorite partner to take in Edge.
Yeah, it's
reason.
almost like they built the silver bullets into the campaign itself in the form of partners.
For real. And whatever the biggest threat is to you, there's a partner that helps you with that. Better hope they don't die in the plane crash.
Oh God,
it's happened more than once to me.
Yeah.
Be like, no, I wanted that.
Yeah. That's what I was going for.
All right, so then Scarlet Keys. So this is one we've talked about most recently. I think kind of one of the big things that we talked about was the concealed keyword. You just have to be able to hit a lot of honest tests at shrouds that might be excessively large. Allegedly.
Yeah. There might also be like a lot of clues on said location.
Yep. That you also have to do.
Yeah. In comparison to other campaigns where there might be less players and less clues, but yeah.
But here's the thing is like, okay, concealed cards are a thing and it's the thing you have to deal with. I think the way that I understand, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, that they ruled how like many of these combo effects deal with concealed cards. There can be no silver bullets. There are just cards that help you with concealed cards.
Yes, I would agree with that. There are just really good and efficient cards that are just that much more efficient in Scarlet Keys, like Break and Enter.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
like that's the closest I came into is stuff like breaking and entering, the stuff that's going to let you maximize your actions and get some exposing going on at the same time as you're doing other stuff.
Ooh, Big Kahuna says butterfly swords with it, which I think is actually. Does that work? Because like the ruling is essentially like out of any one effect you can get one concealed card, but since butterfly swords takes 2 tests, does that mean you could get?
I think it's kind of like
out of each
per test. See, this is part of the problem when I was trying to come up with silver bullets. Is I've still never fully grokked how the hell this all works.
That is a key component, unfortunately.
But I believe it's like, like you can't expose more than one from one test, essentially. I could be totally wrong, but...
So here's my take on it. Reading Butterfly Swords, because it's all under one action, it's action, fight, you get +1 combat for this attack. After this attack, you may exhaust Butterfly Swords to fight again, adding your agility, etc., etc. That's all one ability.
So you think?
So I wonder
you could only get one concealed card out of that ability.
Maybe, and you could if you had another enemy there that you wanted to attack, you can attack them. That they aren't a concealed, so you couldn't attack 2 concealed. I think.
I love what they were reaching for with concealed, but oh my god, I can't imagine how many rules questions they created for themselves.
So many.
How many rules questions they made for me. Just sitting there playing, trying to have a good time.
With 30 good cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Mini bosses are another kind of signature of Scarlet Keys to my mind. You've got those coterie members that show up. So like things like Spectral Razor or 1-2 Punch, or just like ways to like burst out unexpected damage when suddenly you've got like an extra boss on you, are pretty good. Here's the thing: Silver Bullet's hard in Scarlet Keys, but that is really good.
Yeah, I think there's as we go through campaigns, like there's less and less silver bullets. I think because the campaigns have so many varied mechanics going on.
Yeah, sure.
Right, like it throws like 4 or 5 things at you instead of like Dunwich, it's milling you. So if you can counteract the mill card, you might be doing okay. So I'm not sure. That's kind of how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think in particular with the way things have been going, Scarlet Keys is I don't know if it's safe to say that it feels like, as opposed to things past where the campaign has, I can't even finish the thought because it's stupid. I want to say that the earlier campaigns had like a stronger mechanical through line in what they did, but the new ones do too. It's just maybe it feels like that through line isn't as distinct nowadays because, for instance, concealed cards, like we're talking about, aren't really their own mechanic. They are still just fighting, damaging, cluing, evading. Things we're already doing anyway, right? They're not like this brand new thing we actually have to do in like in a way like Haunted like would introduce a new mechanic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the real silver bullet for the Scarlet Keys: knowing your fucking path.
Yeah.
Studying the map, knowing what you're doing, and following the path. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Metagame knowledge. Which, we've said a billion times before, but man, is it ever true of Scarlet Keys.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk about Hemlock Vale. I don't know if you guys can any more than I can, but I've only played it the once and a half. So I don't have a lot yet, other than there's a lot of parlay. So anything parlay. Yeah. Anything parlay related. Fine Clothes, fantastic. Alessandra, fantastic. Actually, your investigators that are 3s across the board, a little bit better, I would argue, because you've got to parlay at a bunch of different abilities or a bunch of different skill types. But yeah, beyond that, I'm not going to be much help. We'll have to revisit this a couple cycles down the line so we can talk about Hemlock Vale intelligently.
Yeah, agreed. I still need to finish a full campaign, so
we'll get there.
I'm halfway through. I'm getting there.
All right. Excellent. Well, as I said at the beginning, we just had a very light discussion about silver bullets. Surely, in the infinite complexity of player cards and the way they interact with campaigns, we have missed some really fun stuff. So if there's a silver bullet, a card that you've played against a campaign to great effect, specifically in that campaign, please call it in. We'd love to have a little collage of these to show off at the end of next episode, or whenever it is next episode, probably closer to the beginning, actually. That's 203-493-6984. 203-493-MYTH. Call them in. Or send us voice files if you prefer. Pre-recorded voice files to mythosbusterspod@gmail.com. Perfectly acceptable as well. All right, boys. Well, let's round it out with a little bit of tentacle time. Scott, what's been grabbing you?
Oh, this is going to be a swear word on this show. Magic. Commander.
Okay, well, you made it better. The second word's better than the first one.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. I mean,
you made it better, but also come play Star Wars with us.
Yeah.
Star Wars Unlimited?
Yeah.
I'm good.
So all right. Carry on, Magic Commander. What's going on?
Just building decks. I've got a local group that I play with, which makes the big difference, right? Like it's hanging out with buddies and stuff like that,
Right.
So that's super fun. I've decided now that I am going to take what they call the 32 challenge, because I enjoy building decks, but I need some restriction on myself, but not a crazy overly restrictive rule on myself.
Okay.
So the 32 challenge is to build a commander deck that you have one commander deck for each possible color combination in Magic. So you have the 5 mono colors, right? You have like a mono white, mono green, etc. Then you have the 10 dual pairs, the 10 triples, and then you have 5 of the 4 color combinations, and that brings you up to 30. And then you have one that's colorless with no mana, and then you have one that's rainbow, which is all 5 colors. And my all 5 color one is going to be Tom Bombadil, because he's crazy fun, and why not? And I opened a super nice card of his. It's like a showcase foil or whatever. Yeah, it's only like worth $3, but I opened it.
Oh, really, Tom?
I know, yeah.
that dude should be worth so much money.
So it's just he's not competitive. That's the thing. Because he's 5 colors.
Well, because it's Tom
nuts.
Bombadil, and he doesn't give a shit. He's just doing his own fucking thing, like Tom Bombadil does.
Oh god, the way he plays is super fun too. There's these cards called Sagas in Magic now, where it's like at the beginning of your turn, or you play it down. It starts at level 1, and at the beginning of your upkeep or the beginning of your turn, you then go to 2, then you go to 3, and it's like it looks like a scroll, and you just go through the scroll, and it does a new thing each turn. And some of them are longer than 3, but most of them are 3 stages. What Tom does is once per turn, when one of your saga finishes, you flip cards off the top of your deck till you find another saga and just put it into play. So he's just constantly telling stories. And the way to make this work is you get cards that add counters to these cards on other people's turns. So then you you essentially like finish a saga on their turn, get a new one, and then the next opponent finish a saga on their turn. And so Tom is just cranking out all these stories.
That's hilarious. He's the old blathering grandpa. You can't shut up.
Yep. The gift of gab. He's just singing songs.
That's fantastic.
So I have like 13 or 14 decks, and just slowly working my way into making more. So, yeah. Also jumping back into Helldivers a bunch more. Jumping.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually played more this week than I have in the past like month. I've actually been able to play a few games. That's so fucking fun. It's such a good game.
My goodness. Every time I jump in, no pun intended again, I'm like, this is a movie that I am playing. Like, it is a popcorn munching alien / robot fighting action movie that is just super fun.
I'll be so excited to see if they add the Illuminate from the first game. I don't know how much you know about that, but they're
very little.
Yeah,
they exist.
They're analogous to like Protoss, if you're familiar with like StarCraft lore. But they're kind of the third enemy faction that are like the hardest ones, and that's something I'm excited for quite a bit. But yeah, excellent. Ian, what's been grabbing you?
Not too much new. So I finished the Fallout show. I think I mentioned that last time. So then in terms of watching new shows, I watched through 3 Body Problem on Netflix, which was super good sci-fi show. I don't want to tell too much because the fun is in the reveal. I was a little bit anxious about it because it's by the dudes who did the Game of Thrones show, but I feel better about it because the whole like book series it's based on is done, so they don't have to make up their own stuff, which is
they get to just adapt and do what they're good at.
They are amazing at adapting and absolute trash at writing.
Yes. Exactly. So I really enjoy it. It's a really, really good show. I recommend watching it. And yeah, they're doing some adapting. So The only downside will be if Netflix decides not to pick it up, which I feel like every time I get into a show on Netflix, they just cancel it. So probably should learn my lesson by now.
It's like being a Firefly fan over and over and over.
I'd be much
again.
happier if it was on a different streaming service that doesn't just like cancel every good show they have going, which is what it feels like Netflix does. Other than that, like just playing a lot of games that I already play and enjoy. Like they came out fairly recently with a mobile version of the Dune Imperium app, so I've been playing that a ton. It's just still freaking love Dune Imperium. Not tired of it at all. Yeah, mobile version. Yeah.
Oh boy, I just lost 80%.
Yep, you have. I think I actually talked about this on the show already, but yeah, the UI for it is really good for a mobile. Like, the main thing I was worried about, like, am I even gonna be like, I'm getting older. Am I gonna even be able to see the board and what's happening on a
Do
mobile
I need
screen?
my readers?
Yeah, but it's actually laid out well. It works well. Like, works as well as the the Steam PC version. So. Yeah, sorry, Scott.
Oh well. Oh no.
Such a freaking good game, though. We gotta play on there sometime,
Yeah.
Scott.
Yes, I would love to.
Shit, I'm such a fake Dune fan. I've only read the first book, and I haven't even seen the second movie.
I know,
yet.
me either.
Is it good? You
No,
guys seen
not
it?
yet.
Oh, really? Okay. Not alone.
I was saving to watch the second movie, no, I didn't watch the first movie, so I was saving it for the second movie because I wanted to watch them all in one big swath.
Oh my god, that's
So-
going to be a long day.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I've watched the Lord of the Rings extended edition all 3 in a row, so
Woo! That I've done that recently, and that was a much longer day than I had anticipated, despite being a giant fan. By the time Third of the King rounded its third ending, I was like, all right,
Yeah.
let's bring it home, boys.
okay, sorry, I have to jump in super quick because we're mentioning book series. Spotify Premium now has audiobooks on there, like as part of the membership, and I am listening to the Gunslinger
Ooh,
series.
nice.
Hell yeah!
I haven't been able to read it because I hate reading now after paramedic school, but my promise stands. When I get to the end of this one, I think I will actually physically find a book and read the last 30
I
pages
think you
wherever
have
King
to.
Would
tells me to stop.
recommend. Would recommend.
And then we're gonna have to have a debrief.
Ugh.
So
Yep. Okay. Yep.
this will be my 4th read through, and I will finally read the actual ending.
Yeah. Who's the narrator for it? Is it anyone notable? Okay.
I have no idea. I think it's like I'm pretty sure it's this guy who was like famous for narrating the Dark Tower, and then he had some sort of brain tumor, and then people were like, "Oh God!" There's a big charity thing for him. Like Stephen King led it because he was such a prominent reader for him. And now I feel terrible not knowing his name.
Yeah.
But yeah. He does a very
Nice.
good job. I'm halfway through the first book, and
Frank
I'm
Muller?
thoroughly enjoying it. Sounds right.
I'm the kind of person who I like listening to audiobooks, but I only like listening to audiobooks of books I've already read, which sounds weird, but
Same.
because the problem is when I'm listening to audiobooks, like I start getting distracted by something, and then like a minute later I realize I didn't hear what they said for the last minute, and then I have to rewind if it's a new book. But if it's a book I already know what happens, it doesn't matter. I just keep going.
Yeah.
Dude, when
Sorry.
they added as a standard feature the back 30 seconds button to audiobooks, that was a game changer
Right?
for me.
Yeah.
And I know that also dates me, but
George Goodall.
George
is the-
Goodall. Cool.
Yes.
That's awesome.
He's apparently won 3 awards for best audiobook something. Yeah.
I am due
Really
to go
fair.
back to the Dark Tower series. When we all started reading it, when Ian was first reading it, as I recall,
Mhm.
I made it all the way through Wizard and Glass and started Wolves of the Kala, but I stalled out
Ugh.
there, so I need to go back and read like the later 3 books.
I don't blame you for stalling out over Wolves.
I like Wolves. I mean, Wizard and Glass is peak for me. That's like top 5 books of all time for me. I love Wizard and Glass. But
I'll throw it out there. I think the first book is still peak for me.
What I love about the first part of the Dark Tower series is each book feels so intensely different despite being part of the same series. Yeah. And like, Wastelands is cool in its own way. Like, okay, all right, well, all right, Scott, I'm gonna go read I'll read the books. Okay, you twisted my arm,
or you can listen to them.
Yeah, I suppose I got Spotify.
Okay, I just looked up George Goodall. Is widely recognized as the world's most acclaimed and prolific audiobook narrator. So there you go.
So I've probably heard him at some point.
Yeah.
See, I'm taking this discussion as a sign. I almost bought like a omnibus of a graphic novel of this. I've never read them. I always intend to never get to it. I tend to get to graphic novels easier. And I put it off, but now that you guys are talking about it again, I'm like, maybe I just do that. I know it's not. I know it's not the same. But
I don't know how far the graphic novels have expanded since I was last paying attention. But most of the graphic novels that I'm aware of are prequels to the actual Dark Tower series.
Yeah,
similar to Wizard and Glass.
Oh, then I should go double check what I was about to buy.
But those are all really good too. However, I don't think they'll be as good if you don't have the context of the actual series first.
Sure.
But having not experienced them in the opposite order, I couldn't say for sure.
Yeah, it looks like the graphic novels, like I'll read out the titles and whoever's read the books, it'll make sense to them. Gunslinger Born, A Long Road Home, Treachery, The Fall of Gilead, and The Battle of Jericho Hill.
Yeah, those are all like
those
young Roland.
Yeah. Oh god, The Battle of Jericho Hill.
Did any of you guys read Wind Through the Keyhole?
I own it. I have not read it.
You have not read it? Okay. Well, here's the thing. The majority of that story is actually okay, so you know how like Knights of the Old Republic is a prequel to the Star Wars trilogy, but a prequel in a way that it's like set so far ahead of everything else that it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what the majority of the Wind Through the Keyhole is. The bulk of that story is a story that's set in like mythology so far ahead of or so far behind Roland that it kind of doesn't matter, and it only like loosely associates with the rest of the series. But it's a really good book.
Hey, good news, that's also on Spotify.
Hey! We did it.
Yep.
Would recommend. Perfect. Justin, what's grabbing you?
Let's see. So, I finished up The Bad Batch, because that just wrapped up. It's real good. I don't want to say more to spoil anything, but it's real
it's
good.
Very far down the road for me. I look forward to getting to it.
Yeah, so it's good there. Helldivers for me as well. That's one where we played our weekly game night. That continues to be fun. I really like that I don't feel like I'm falling behind if I only get to play it once a week, which is fun.
It's great for that.
Yep. So there's that. I've been playing a bunch of Destiny 2 as well. I've mentioned that before. They're going to release their final in the current like 10-year arc expansion in about a month from when we're recording. So I'm trying to just do any of the story beats in the game that will go away. I'm woefully behind on the story because I dropped off for like 5 years, but anything I can experience, I want to, so I'm doing that. And then the last thing I had for Tentacle Time was actually, so when I was on vacation this last week, for anybody who missed our talk about poutine, and when I was there, I made a point to go to this store, and it's called I'm going to butcher the French, but Le Valet de Cour. I think it translates. Yeah, like the Jack of Hearts, Knave of Hearts, something like that.
Yeah.
The reason I know about this store in Montreal is, I mean, it shows up if you search game stores. It's cool. You should check it out. But I have bought Star Wars Destiny from them before and had them ship it to me, like a substantial amount of Destiny. So I'm getting all these dice and shit shipped from Montreal. And so I stopped in and I was like, "Hi guys, I'm here." And so that was a fun little conversation to have with them. And I then got to explain that to my wife about why I was using my time on vacation to do that.
That is where I bought my second favorite board game of all time, Galaxy Trucker.
Oh, Galaxy Trucker is so good.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite nowadays? Rebellion?
Star Wars Rebellion.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep. I finally got a chance to play that. I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
Oh no, we have not. How'd you like it?
I quite enjoyed it.
It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you like start really getting into it and like figuring out,
Yes,
once you can meta game it essentially, and
Yeah.
you play against like 2 experienced players, oh my goodness, it gets wild.
Yeah, like I saw the hints of that. I'm like, oh, like when you actually understand what's going on here, like there's so much more that you can do. It's a really cool game. Excellent. Well, for my part, more a Clone Wars update. I am 6 episodes into season 4. I just met General Krell.
Oh,
Who's a cool character from now Star Wars Unlimited. Was the first time I saw him, and now I know who he is, and I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do, and like actually knowing the characters that are in this game.
And I need to show you him in Star Wars Destiny as well, because once you know his character, they did some really good thematic stuff with him.
And like he's basically like the Ulysses S. Grant of the Clone Wars. At least as far as he's been characterized so far. I'm sure he gets deeper, but really cool.
No, I think that's fair. Don't read my silence as disagreeing. I was processing. You just couldn't see. I'm like, yeah, no, you are correct.
He just like throws dudes at people. That's what he does. So that's been fun. I've been enjoying that increasingly as the series has gone on. So that everyone who has said like, oh, it gets better as you go is vindicated. So I'm looking forward to that. But the main thing I want to talk about is a game that my friend Brian vehemently recommended to me because of its Lovecraftian flavor. And that is a game called Dredge. So Dredge is a game that's on like all the consoles and PC. It is a fishing game. It is actually a fishing game. So the majority of the mechanics in this game are catching fish, going back to market to sell the fish so that you can repair and upgrade your boat so that you can more efficiently catch fish, and the cycle continues onward. However, within those like main mechanics of the game, you also get to dredge for like not fish but like salvage basically. And in that salvage lies some mysterious objects. And as you continue to play the game, there's kind of a mysterious Lovecrafty edge to the whole thing. And like you start to catch mutated species of fish. And there's this dude who's like looking out for like these very specific artifacts that are a little creepy. And then eventually, I'm just going to like light spoiler for you here. This is kind of the premise of the game, so it's not much of a spoiler, but there are actual sea monsters in this game. So Brian was like, you have to play this. I really think you'll enjoy it. But my thing is that sea monsters are like my one true phobia. Like dark water, big sea monsters in video games, that's like childhood trauma for me. So
have you ever considered playing Subnautica?
Yes. But every time I get there, I start to retch.
Yep.
And I decided, because I also have I have access to play it in VR. And I'm
God.
And I'm like, how much do I hate myself?
Oh boy.
But anyway, so what's interesting is that for the first part of this game, I was really, really, really on high alert, and it was tripping my sea monster phobia in a big way. However, once I've now acquainted myself to the mechanics of the game, you find out that, like, yeah, the sea monsters, they're around, but, like, really what they do is they, like, if they catch you, they just damage your ship, and you lose a couple of cargo compartments, and you kind of have to, like, pay money to repair them. So, while they are threatening from a mechanical perspective, they're not actually, like, gonna kill you. They're just a thing you have to, like, dodge around and avoid and occasionally spend money to repair. So, anyway, I've been having a great time with it. There is a story in the background. I'm not very far into it. You're collecting these artifacts, and each one kind of like unspools a little bit more of what's going on between these like connected island systems. But yeah, it's a little fun fishing game with the Lovecraft edge, and I'm quite enjoying it. So check out Dredge.
It sounds like a game that I would enjoy.
It's actually more chill than it sounds, and if you don't have the sea monster phobia like I do, it's probably very chill. So would recommend. You can just like tool around. What's really fun is that it's got a day-night cycle, and like things get worse at night, obviously. And
I just got turned off that game.
But here's the thing: is time does not move unless your boat is moving or unless you're actively fishing or dredging. So if you like want to avoid night for the most part, you can kind of do that, and you only have to engage with it for like the very few like main mission objectives where you have to like go collect a thing at night, and it's not too bad. Date night cycle. Yeah. So anyway, Dredge, pretty fun. Go check it out. It's a little Lovecrafty, it's a little fun, and it's kind of a chill fishing game at times. It's all of those things. Excellent. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. So thank you everyone for joining us for Mythos Busters episode 165, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.